Dan, look, as ever, always great to get you on Real Vision. And this time it's on Real Vision Crypto. So we're going to kind of leave a bit of the macro world behind.
Okay.
Because you and I have both been down this journey together, and it's been fascinating.
Yeah.
And people have seen it on Real Vision, us both going down the journey of you dragging me back in and that great conversation that we had. Now, things have changed for you because you've now gone even deeper into this. Much like many of the macro guys, you've gone from being an observer of the space to an investor of the space, and now you're going all in on the space. Do you want to talk us a little bit about what you're up to?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we kind of, you've been an intellectual sparring partner of mine for years and years. And it was, we really hashed that thesis out together. And that was sort of the initial stage of me falling down that rabbit hole. And so, after the initial sort of Bitcoin position in Q1, Q2 19, I really started to look around for what else I could do. And, given my background and experience, I really wanted a sector bet. I was sort of blown away like you by how intelligent some of the people were in the space, all the different projects that they were working on. Again, very hard to understand. I don't know that you and I could have a really high level conversation about Polkadot or even Ethereum. I mean, it's very high, very complex. And I just found myself continuing to hit a wall. Bitcoin, I could understand because there's very strong macro component to it. A store of value is very, the Bitcoin network that we talked about, the value of that network, especially in the, after the first 5-6 years, really, I think has become, established. But there are lots of interesting things going on that are valid. And so I wanted to find a way to dig in and figure out a way to get involved, because I'm just sitting there with my Bitcoin and that's wonderful. But what else? And so I came up with this idea for this fund that we launched, 10T Holdings, launched just a few weeks ago after a year plus of work. And it really is a sector bet. It's a classic bet that I've done before. I sort of did it in the ag space, where when I was working with Druckenmiller, we aggregated a whole group of farms, built a farmland REIT, and that became sort of our bet on the farmland sector. We held that for 7 years and had a fantastic exit. And so I was looking for that sector bet, and I didn't feel that there were enough. Of course, there's Novogratz's Galaxy. That's one public company. I thought about taking a position there, but I didn't feel it had as widespread an emphasis as I wanted. And I wanted exposure to several different sectors, and I figured I'd build a portfolio of companies that were active in that space. And so I've sort of divided this whole world into 3 categories: digital asset ecosystem gateways, next generation financial services, and blockchain infrastructure companies. And 10T is very simple. We're just building a portfolio of 10 to 12 companies overall, 3 to 5, let's say, or 3 to 4 companies in each space. And they're companies that are mid to late stage. They're larger than $400 million in valuation. They have, let's say, $30 to $50 million in revenues or larger. They've established moats. They have leadership teams. They've already figured out how to win. And the reason I've done this is because the funds in the space, for the most part, are all VC and focused on early stage. And I don't really have any ability to add value there. And I can't compete against an Andreessen or a Polychain or a Paradigm or Parafy or any of the guys in the space today. I don't have a programming background. I can't get into the arcane details of the protocols. And frankly, the people I know and my investors really can't either. And so this was really a simple way for me to express a bet on the space, and for me to be able to explain it in simple terms. These are companies you will own. There is an income statement and a balance sheet. There is a CEO. There is a team. This is their project. So any 60-year-old guy who knows something's going on in Bitcoin, something's going on in this digital asset world, they're not quite sure, they can't wade in because there's too high a barrier, an intellectual barrier, for people to really understand. I mean, try to figure out the difference between Polkadot and Chainlink, or actually how Polkadot works. And I listened to a podcast recently with Gavin Wood. I mean, I've listened to it 3 times and I'm still not exactly sure because, it's interesting, but I don't really know. However, owning companies that are leveraged to the growth of the overall digital asset ecosystem seems like an easier way for me and other people like me to get exposure. And I really feel, last thing I'd say is I really feel like I'm bringing a whole new investor base, investor class to the space, people who would not necessarily come in, but who are sitting on very large pools of capital. And so I think the fund is sort of a nice toe dip for our LPs and investor base. And then if they want to explore certain things more, then they can. And so that's what I've been busy doing for the building that business for the past year, and we've launched. And
yeah, I mean, super interesting. I mean, that later stage idea, as we're going into the Coinbase IPO, people are starting to see there is massive value embedded in some of these businesses. What I want to cover with you, you talked about the 3 key areas. I'd love to, let's go through those key areas. So we talked about the gateways. You talked about, let's go through the 3 areas that you discussed, because I think that's interesting to dig into, to see what your thoughts are on them, how you think about them overall. Because again, at a top-down level, you and I can't get into the weeds about the technology because we just can't. But It's the conceptual framework of what this is all about and where it might be going, I think, is going to interest people.
Yeah, look, I mean, these are categories that we came up with. Other people have broken this world down into many different categories, and 7, 8 different categories. Some people now have a tremendous focus on the gaming or NFTs. There's, of course, also DeFi has been on fire, so people are focused on that. There are people who are Bitcoin only, and they're only looking at things that Bitcoin type solutions. There are, so there are many different, ways to carve this world up. And I think the reason we came up with what we did was just simply because the companies that are larger fit into these categories for us, right? So there are only 35 companies that we see that have a valuation over 400. We're going to own, 10 to 15 of them. So the first one is sort of just traditional, I would say the on-ramps into the digital asset world. I mean, Coinbase, of course, is one. We won't own Coinbase because it's already, it's already on path to being public. But there are other exchanges that would be in the exchanges that a Bitstamp or an eToro or Kraken. I mean, these are right. Any of the exchanges, that would be sort of one category. And I might even put BlockFi in that category too. They've just done a raise at 2.8 billion. I think they really are sort of the blue chip, leader in the borrowing and lending space. And so, I would sort of categorize them almost as a gateway as well. So we've broken it, as I said, we've broken it down because those areas, are populated with companies at the size that we're looking to invest in.
Hey, if you like this clip, be sure to check out the full interview and more only on realvision.com/crypto. It's 100% free. Sign up now.